the capital D drama on this episode of Raw, because there was a smoochy kiss.
And with tongues.
Yeah, tongue. Mm-hmm. Because Liv Morgan smoochy kissed Dominik Mysterio all up in his face after she retained her title. Because, well, you can't really say that Dom was at fault. Braun was at fault.
No, Dom shouldn't have been there. If Dom wasn't there, this wouldn't have happened.
Well, maybe we'll come on to this in a little bit, I guess. Only going DAD, this is Dan Layton, the Professor, the Truth Dan Layton, and welcome to the WrestleTalk podcast. Please do press the subscribe button, give us a little thumbs up as well, leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode of Monday Night Raw, as we're going to review it, and also get in your thoughts to our live viewership if you are watching live, and join in the conversation. Let us know your thoughts there, and if you want them read out on the air, WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them before the end of the show. Do mark in your calendars, your diaries, your digital ones, whatever it is that you do this, your Todoist or whatever it is, your resource guru. This coming Friday is our 10-hour marathon live stream where we're watching Money in the Bank ladder matches. This Friday. We'll be putting the stream up tomorrow, so you can go there and set your notifications and whatnot. Excellent. Good use of your diary.
Thank you.
We'll see you there this coming Friday. Should also point out as well, because I was putting over, well, Sat was putting me over because I'm doing all 10 hours. It's like, oh man, you're putting the effort in. Mod Mother's also doing all 10 hours.
Yeah.
Our moderating team are also putting in a lot of effort here. So let's shout out the moderators right now as well. We're getting towards the end of the month. We're going to be shouting them out on these shows over this week. So give a shout out to our moderating team. Now, let's talk about this episode of Raw.
Yep.
Which featured a main event of Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan for the Women's World Championship inside a salad steel cage match.
Salad steel cage?
Yes.
I don't get it.
It's an old wrestling thing of a salad steel cage instead of a solid steel cage.
I'm too young and nubile.
I was actually surprised at how little the crowd were into this match. I saw one review said, I heard someone in the front row fart. That is how little the crowd were into this.
I was listening on AirPods Max and I didn't hear a fart, so I think that is a little bit hyperbolic. Don't you?
And I didn't enjoy it as much as their King of the Ring match, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was really good. We can talk about the Becky stuff in a little bit, I suppose. Let's talk about the kayfabe world first before we get into the real world stuff. And they were having a match. It was kind of back and forth. They did their cage spots. They did this. They did that, the other. And then Dominik Mysterio, who earlier in the night had said, he told Damian Priest, look, I've spoken with Rhea Ripley. I've spoken to Mammy. And I've apologized for messing things up in Saudi Arabia. Tonight I'm going to make it right. Prior to that, we'd also seen that JD McDonagh was talking with Liv Morgan. So I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Dom Mysterio came out, and his way to help Becky was to open the door, because it's escape the cage rules in WWE. So open the door to let Becky Lynch come out. And Becky Lynch was like, what are you doing? And Dom's like, leave. You win. I can't have Liv be the champion right now. That's not what Rhea Ripley wants, so get out the ring and leave. In the process of this, JD McDonagh and Finn Balor came out to ask Dominik Mysterio what he's doing. And in the process of that, Braun Strowman, who'd been chasing JD McDonagh all show with his little limp that looked like he'd pooped his pants because he was he sort of stormed down to the ring. He did his choo-choo train gimmick around the ring. And in the process of doing that, bumped into Dominik Mysterio, who bumped into the cage door, which bumped into Becky Lynch. And then she sold that. Liv Morgan opened the door and left.
Yeah.
I thought this was a bad finish.
Oh, interesting. I didn't mind it. I had a chuckle at it, which, is maybe not the response you're going for. Maybe you're going for high drama or whatever. This was a very soap opera episode of television for me. I've always sort of, when people who don't watch wrestling, especially in the mid-noughties, tried to understand why I might watch wrestling when it wasn't, like the hottest thing in the world. Thank you, Dwayne. I would be like, it's just Hollyoaks in front of a live studio audience. It's full soap opera. Yeah. And this was kind of a prime example of that. Specifically this finish where it is, hyper melodramatic, however you feel about escape the cage rules and things like that, and the door, the existence of a door, let alone the use of the door for the escape kind of thing. I don't know. Like that, there's a lot of thoughts that go into that. But for me, I just thought it was kind of silly. I appreciated the thread of Braun Strowman chasing JD McDonagh around the arena all show.
Like that.
Coming back to play. I liked the fact that they came out like, what are you doing? He's either playing the Liv Morgan side, or he's got this weird internal logic where he's like, this is the worst thing. I did this wrong. I have to fix it. And it's one of those things where like the butterfly effect, Dominik Mysterio going out and trying to affect this match leads JD McDonagh out, which leads Braun Strowman. I kind of thought it was silly and fun. And yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, silly I think is a word I would use. Maybe bad is a strong word. I'd say wacky is the word that I used in my edited review.
Sometimes, either depending on what side of the bed you wake up or just what your preference is, you might have no place for wackiness. And there's absolutely a world where I don't have the energy or the time for wackiness in my like world title picture.
Yeah.
However, given that we got the match we got at King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring, given that we have had, I think given that I knew how this was going to end because of the outside stuff that we'll talk about in a minute. So I had enjoyed the match. I didn't think it was as good as the King Queen of the Ring match, but I enjoyed this match for what it was. And I just was thinking about a lot of different things to do with Becky Lynch and me as a fan of Becky Lynch throughout the match. So when it came down to it, and it was really an angle furthering moment.
Yeah,
I was like, that's great. I really like this.
The story is the bit that I do like of this. I think that the machinations of the finish itself, I think it's almost one too many dominoes. Sort of for my liking, because I like wackiness in wrestling.
Pun intended. Dom.
Oh!
Innos.
Yeah. Well, sometimes there are one too many liver-nos when you're setting things up.
I'm 90% certain that Kylie and Danny Minogue's brother is called Dominik. He's Dom Minogue. I'm going to check that.
I'll be honest, I didn't know that Kylie and Danny had a brother.
Yeah. Big time. He works in telly.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
I don't care
about just says relatives, Danny Minogue's sister.
Yeah, well, maybe she's got a bigger Wikipedia page. Maybe I'll click on Danny. Oh no, sorry, excuse me. Apologies. Their brother's name is Brendan. Has absolutely nothing to do with that. I just got carried away with my own pun. This is why I don't usually have my laptop down here, but Blair needs the iPad. So.
Oh man, if we still had the best of, that would have for sure made it. But anywho, so yeah, I like my wackiness in wrestling. I like a lot of silliness.
Yeah.
I like a lot of WrestleBolics. I felt this was a couple of steps too much.
Yeah.
And I didn't love the finish. No, the reaction I've seen to it online, a lot of people didn't like this finish. The one thing I've seen is like, a man was involved in a women's storyline. I don't have an issue with that. Actually, one of the things I was so surprised going into that main event is my first thought was, I guess that Braun Strowman story just didn't go anywhere on this show. He didn't find him in the end. I guess that's the end of the story. And then lo and behold, he did find him. That actually played into the finish of this match.
I also, I am card carry. I'm the woke agenda pusher here.
Oh, I know. Yeah, your woke mind virus is all over this show.
It's completely. So I fully have sympathy for the idea of the man being involved in the women's storyline. I always think about James Ellsworth winning the Money in the Bank, and how that was just so infuriating for a number of different reasons. I think the difference here is this is a storyline. It's the main event of the show, and it's Dominik Mysterio is playing the Jezebel role that traditionally would have been a Tory, right, or a Trish Stratus. It is a full reversal of that, and it is all designed to solidify Rhea Ripley, who is not even in the building, as the top star here.
That is... So the thing I do like about this, so Liv wins, and then afterwards, she is celebrating, and the USA Network feed ends.
Ha! Suck it, America!
But we here...
TNT Sports!
With TNT Sports, saw the full ending of this show, which is that Liv sees Dominik Mysterio, she grabs him and plants a big old smoochy kiss on his face, tongues and all, and he was... he was resisting it. He wasn't also stopping it. And then he has the look on his face of like, I now don't know what I'm feeling or what I'm supposed to feel right now. And Liv's whole deal, this revenge tour, has not just been about her winning the world title. It is taking everything from Rhea Ripley, which is why, we've been theorizing from the very start of this, she's going to take Dom. And then that has sort of come to pass. And I think that she will get Dom. And I think with Damian Priest possibly on the outs with Judgment Day, Liv takes over Judgment Day. So not only is she taking her world title, she's taken her sub, and she's going to take her entire group. So when the Rhea Ripley comes back, when her music hits, and there's this new Liv Morgan-led Judgment Day of Balor and JD and Dom and probably Carlito as well.
God, that's fun. She's obviously been seen chatting to JD and chatting to Finn. I'd never even considered it on that level of her taking the Judgment Day as a whole. I imagined her poaching Dominik away from
that's what I
thought.
That's
far more.
That's
revenge tour.
It's only like in this last week where I'm like, oh, maybe it will be the whole group itself. And then I'm starting to think about how every promo that has been done by the male counterparts to Damian Priest has been about, you've lost your leader. Your group has lost its leader. Establishing that Rhea Ripley is the de facto leader of Judgment Day. Yeah. So when Liv Morgan takes that group, and she is then the new de facto leader. So they've kind of been, elsewhere throughout the show, I feel like they've been setting up this idea that, Rhea is in charge.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Damian is long for the group.
No.
Whether that happens at Clash, whether that happens in the lead up to Clash, or what have you. But I think we are sowing a lot of seeds here that Liv Morgan, by the time that Rhea Ripley comes back, is not only the world champion and the dominant of Dom, she's also the leader of this spooky group.
I love all of that. Thanks. Like that, I think that's another reason that I really enjoyed this finish. I think because that all is just a great idea for a story, a great narrative, especially, and there's a lot of opportunities you can do with that. As we'll get elsewhere on the show, I think Priest is the least likely to enter Bash at Berlin as world champion of the three people who were in the ring at the start of the show. The idea may be that, Priest is out of the Judgment Day, has some form of reunion with Rhea Ripley returning, and could get a bit of the Rhea Ripley rub as a babyface. Because I think if you look at the trajectory of the world title, where do I see it? At SummerSlam, Bash at the Berlin. Is there a beach in Berlin? This is going to stress me out for the entirety of it.
I think it is quite a central...
Quite a landlocked country, isn't it?
Landlocked town.
So they should have called it something else. But at Bash at Berlin, I don't see him in the picture there. And I look ahead to WrestleMania, and I still don't see him in the picture much longer. So it's like, how do you do right by Priest? I think maybe giving him a bit of a against Finn Balor with Rhea Ripley as the babyface outside of, the DX war they had in 2000. That's kind of interesting. Also, I know there are going to be, because the kiss was non-consensual, so or at least that was ostensibly, it looked like it was a smooch that she planted on him rather than one he was reciprocating. This was not the Matt Hardy Lita smooch. This was not Lita and Edge. She smooched a lot, did Lita?
Or AJ Lee.
AJ Lee, great example. Yeah. This is, again, it's a nice sort of role reversal to a time where Tori was a Christmas with Tori was a stipulation in a match between Kane and X-Pac. Do you know what I mean?
Kane and State Christmas story. That was the promo he did.
Who was that an impression of?
That's X-Pac and his very throaty voice.
I see. I wouldn't have picked that out of a lineup.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something interesting in that, and people are being very jokey about how it was Liv assaulting him, kind of thing. But also, that's a real thing. But then within that conversation, there's a whole idea of like narrative television and the oppressor and the oppressee and all of this. It's a whole other conversation for a different podcast. I just wanted to acknowledge it before they thought we didn't. I just find it really compelling as a narrative where this is going to go, because let's not forget, Rhea Ripley was seen as sort of corrupting Dom's mind and taking him away, and then and if he is in that, you refer to him as her sub kind of thing, and that was very much what they were selling. That's part of that world kind of thing. And Liv Morgan came out to this match dressed as Rhea Ripley. At least it was at a point to, she's wearing black leather and straps and things like that. So there's so many elements of this that I think are really fascinating and really entertaining.
I would say this is the first week where I've really got into this Liv Morgan revenge tour.
Yeah, completely.
I haven't been into it since she came back. I wasn't really into it when she injured Rhea Ripley, which was by accident. I wasn't into it then. I wasn't into it when she was going after Becky Lynch for King and Queen of the Ring. But I think this is the episode here where I'm like, do you know what? Actually, I think I'm quite into the idea of this because I think there is something good that you could get out of this, as opposed to what it had felt like up until now, which was just she just needs to have this belt until Rhea Ripley comes back.
I think it was what we'd sort of said was, I think the creative let Liv and Becky down on the way to King and Queen of the Ring. I also feel like, I know I've said it a few times, I think Liv's delivery and her cadence is a bit Marmite for me. I don't love it. And I
think people have the same thing about her in ring work as well.
Right. And I in ring work, I'm less. I prefer her in ring work to her mic work.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I think primarily it's that the story was letting them down.
Yeah,
and I think a reason for that, again, to be fair as possible, is that they'd done it. And this was they'd done it in the lead up to WrestleMania. The plan was for Rhea to carry on, and then Rhea gets injured, so they have to quickly pivot. And rather than putting, and this is maybe going to lead us on to Becky, but rather than putting the belt on Liv in a battle royal, it was they used it in a story way to give Liv a victory.
Absolutely,
twice in 3 days.
That's what you and I said when Becky won the battle royal, because there was people there was like
Becky Hogan,
Becky's overpushed, and you and I were like, no, it makes more sense for Becky to have it now because it doesn't hurt her to lose this belt. For me, I still think they could have held it off a little bit longer. However, but it looks like, going by the reports from Fightful Select, this coming Saturday, June 1st, Becky Lynch is a free agent. Her contract is up at the end of May. And she has, currently, the time of this podcast record, we're being broadcast live at the moment, she has not re-signed a deal. That is not that, and Sean's very clear in these reports, I am not saying they are close to an agreement. I am not saying that they are far from an agreement. I am just saying there isn't one. They have not agreed to a deal. And his feelings on this are that unless a deal is signed in the week, that start of next week, she is going to get the biggest contract offers from both WWE and AEW, and will likely become the highest paid woman in wrestling history. Which, is currently being held by Mercedes Moné, which means she'll only have had that accolade for like a handful of months.
Yeah.
And that's so I find that very interesting, because that was some of the speculation why the belt was taken off her at King and Queen of the Ring, because, well, we can't have her as a world champion because she's going to be gone the week after next, and she didn't win in this match here. And there's videos from the building that everyone, clearly knowing the news, were saying thank you, Becky, as she was leaving. I have said pretty much since the news broke last April that her contract was up this year, I fully expect her to re-sign. I know you have said on the show, I don't expect to see Rebecca Quinn is all elite.
I said Rebecca Knox, actually, because I'm an insider. I actually know. I read a book. And I wrestled on the British indie scene in 2005. I think it was 2004.
I just more thought, because she's got the book now.
Yeah.
So maybe she should...
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't think I'm expecting that. I also don't expect her re-signing with WWE to be something that happens next week. Maybe she will just use this to just take time off and just walk away for a little bit. I think she's more than earned that. But I do think I expect her to re-sign. Having said that, I also expected Cody Rhodes to re-sign with AEW, and that obviously blew up spectacularly in my face. What are your feelings?
The only Cody Rhodes thing that blew up spectacularly in your face. What was it? I don't see Intercontinental Champion Cody Rhodes.
No, I did see Intercontinental Champion. My problem was I didn't see him ending title. I didn't see him being the person to dethrone Roman Reigns.
Yeah. It might have come to people's notice that I struggle a little bit with the reports, and talking about insiders and whatever is reported on Fightful and PW Insider and all the rest of it, and that's not from a place of disrespecting those news outlets, and I know that particularly over on Fightful there's a real push to try and legitimize wrestling journalism. We've spoken a lot about it when it comes to like press conferences both with AEW and WWE. They don't really know what they want them to be. The reason that people are so obsessed with star ratings from one guy is because for the longest time there wasn't. an ecosystem.
Yeah, he was the guy.
Yeah, and obviously, no disrespect to Bill Apter or whatever.
Or to Mike Johnson, or to Wade Keller, or even like the work that Alvarez was doing in the mid 2000s stuff. Like these people have been doing it, but there was one guy. He was the WWE of the wrestling journalist world.
I think the reason that I'm a little bit reticent to lean too hard into that is because sometimes the reporting it reminds me of the sort of paparazzi era of the 2000s, where there's a certain level of assumptive knowledge from an audience. Like, you buy the magazines to read the gossip. The gossip then is written by the magazines to try and I have complicated feelings about it, and I don't mean disrespect to them in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
An example of why I am a little bit like, ooh, I don't know when it comes to what the reports say, or specifically, I suppose, what we divine from the reports, like what we read into the reports, is Drew McIntyre, who very recently spoke about the fact that his sister-in-law passed away like a year ago. And I remember around that time, he took some time off. It was post-WrestleMania. He then returned in Money in the Bank. And there was a lot of conversation online about whether or not he was dissatisfied and he was leaving and he was going to go to AEW and all this stuff. And actually what was going on was probably just a real reassessment of his wants, his needs, his desires as a human being who lives on the other side of the world from a large portion of his family. Now, obviously, we know how this has all turned out. He's resigned. He's found a new deal. He's spoken. Part of the reason he was speaking about this was he was speaking about this new deal that he signed and how it allows for him to spend time with his family and things like that. The reason I'm bringing that up is if Becky Lynch wants to go and make a big book over at AEW and have a run there with some women she's never wrestled before, that is absolutely her prerogative. If she wants to re-sign with WWE and carry on the trailblazing career that she's had there at the market leader, where she is one of the top stars in the history of the company, that is her prerogative. If she wants to go home and look after her husband, who is currently receiving surgery, and take care of her daughter, who is entering a very critical time in her upbringing. We know she lost her dad during COVID, so family is, having read her book, very important to her. It is her prerogative. She has given us so much as a performer. As a fan base, we have received the joy of the rise of the man, right? We have enjoyed big time Bex and seen her do her best to sort of elevate other people, sometimes against various different grains, and including infighting at the top of the company. I think she's given so much to this career and to this industry that it is her choice, whatever the hell she wants to do next. And I have a huge amount of respect for her. And on a personal level, she's someone who left the industry and never thought she'd go back into it. Like, she had that run very, very early on in her career, had a massive knock of confidence, and just bailed and disappeared, and found her way back to it, and it found its way back to her. And that, for me, is so immensely inspiring. That's one of the reasons that she's one of my favorites. That's one of the reasons that she's on my personal Mount Rushmore, so which is, at this point, is several people bigger.
It's impossible to pick just four.
But
I hate the Mount Rushmore question for that reason.
She's in my personal starting 11, my fantasy 11. On a personal level, that means a lot to me. She means a lot to me, and so I'm grateful for her contribution. Becky, thank you very much. Do whatever the hell you want, love. Crack on.
I will echo what Sean said on the Fightful post show that he did for Monday Night Raw, which is that, look, here are the facts of the situation as far as these reports go, and as what Sean is being told. She has not signed a new deal. That's fact. The rest of it is subject. The rest of it is completely opinion. And he goes, and I don't think you can comfortably sit there and be like, she will do this, because none of us know. You don't know what's going on in her mind. No one knows what her priorities are. Absolutely no one does. I have a feeling. I can make assumptions, but I don't know. If someone said to me, gun to my head, do you think she will re-sign? I'd be like, yeah, I think she probably will, but I don't know that for a fact. She might not do anything. And as you do echo what you were just saying then, she can do whatever the hell she wants. She can do, come June 1st, she can do whatever the hell she wants. She can walk away from the business. AJ Lee walked away from it. Punk walked away from it for, however many years it was. You can just do that. And more power to her.
And also, she's still quite young.
Absolutely, yeah.
She's what, 36, 38?
Yeah, I think she's roughly the same age as me. Yeah.
Right. So, Trish Stratus has, with Becky, come back and had a run. that's one of the ones I'm using as an example of stop-start, and this kind of infighting at the top of WWE kind of stifled and put a wrench in many of those works. But cage matches, Becky Lynch and cage matches, that last cage match they had together was really good.
Yeah, it was great.
It stands as Trish Stratus's favorite match.
I think it's the best match she's ever had.
And that's come far later in her lifetime, and she left at a sort of similar period of at her peak. She never reached the heights of Becky in terms of main eventing WrestleMania, but
never would have been able to.
Exactly. And I think that, if she wants to go away for 5-6 years and then come back, again, it's all her prerogative.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if she'll become the new speculation station of just like where she's going to go next if she does decide to walk away from all of this. But again, that is just all subjective. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've no idea. From my own sort of personal note, if this is our last Becky Lynch match, I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed this ride. I cannot express how much I have. When I really got into NXT, her and Bayley and Banks and Flair became sort of like, they were like my focal point of the show. They were the things that I most wanted to watch on the show. And it was like, and then it's Sami Zayn and Pac and Kevin Owens and Balor and all of this sort of stuff. But those 4 horsewomen really were that was my, not only just my entry point, the thing that kept me really in NXT and what I really liked about that. And then being part of this company and doing WrestleTalk and this being my full-time job, being a cheerleader for Becky Lynch on a very public platform has been such an honor and a privilege. We were there being like, why isn't Becky being pushed? You should push Becky more. Becky needs this. Becky deserves this. Where are we getting our Becky stuff? So then we were there for the genesis of the man and, the standing with the blood pouring down her face and stuff. And that's been kind of awesome. And it's been so lovely as a fan to have seen that the passion that fans have had for her be rewarded time and time again. And she has had great runs all throughout that. Has every one of them been perfect? Absolutely not. But she's always been she's always put on great matches. Those WrestleMania matches. And all across, the calendar year. I'm such a Becky Lynch mark.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would go as far as say. I think if you then say I'm a Becky Lynch apologist, that makes it sound like people dislike that person. Like when people, I'm a Nia Jax apologist, because,
right.
But I have been kind of bummed out over the last 6 months or so to see the amount of hate that Becky gets, online and stuff.
Yeah.
And we see it in our chat and we see it in the comments and stuff, and it kind of bums me out a little bit because I'm like, I don't know. I think that she's earned much more respect than that.
You never see people giving respect in the moment. There's always a lot of hindsight, and I think it's just a fundamental misunderstanding of the role that she has played in the industry, specifically in this locker room, to think that she's someone who is a Hogan, all the rest of it. So, yeah, if you need an apologist, I'll be there, but I don't think she deserves an apologist. Yeah, in the same way as you.
Well, thank you for all of your chats that we've had in so far. Please do continue getting in your chats to our the sidebar there. Let us know what you thought of this episode. WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of your chats before the end of the show. Badger Sprite here said, I got into pro wrestling in the late Attitude Era when it was a trashy soap opera. Love triangles galore, so I'm really here for this angle. It feels very nostalgic.
I kind of get that. Like, there's also, the love challenges thing in the love triangle. Oh my god, the love triangle thing in challenges is there as well. So there's something about that I quite like. I think the best blend of wrestling has your trashy soap opera stuff and your incredible in-ring work stuff as well. And we got some of that on this show too. So
I think that's where some people are finding or taking issue with AEW at the moment, because they are doing, like what they're currently doing with Mariah May and Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa is a love triangle storyline that they are sort of building towards as we get to Forbidden Door. And some people are sort of pushing against that because I don't think they want to see trashy soap opera within their wrestling, but wrestling has always been a trashy soap opera.
It's also one of my favorite things in AEW for the last couple of years was MJF and Cole.
Adam Cole, yeah. It's amazing how kind of over it was with the live crowds, but online crowds really took against that. I think you can look at the ratings. So this is a different conversation for a different.
It's contrarianism. That's
Valub here has been a membug for 36 months in a row. Said I thought the Comedy of Errors main event finish was hilarious. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's a world title. I don't want my.
No, I get that. And a world title is Becky's last match, like potentially for a while. Asterisk, aplenty, all of that stuff. I can completely understand. There's a world where I hate it as well.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of good for the Liv Morgan heel character, though, because she did have a promo early in the night being like, I've never beaten Becky Lynch fair.
I've never been in a steel cage match before.
So this is my chance to beat her fair and square. So that it does add some heelness to that.
I think that's it. That combined with the King of the Ring match means that a lot of... I've had both. I've had both my, just like, good match kind of thing, and then my trashy soap opera.
Yeah. Natural Geeling said, sadly I missed Raw last night, mostly because I completely forgot that it was on, but I do find the ending a bit anticlimactic, like Luke says, but Dan is correct that it builds the Rhea versus Liv story. I think
these guys.
Well, I don't think I would argue that the finish doesn't build Liv versus Rhea. The post-match does, but I don't think
I think the finish does as well.
But I think, again, it's because I don't blame Dom. I think it's Braun Strowman that's at fault.
But then you use the butterfly effect. If Dom's not out there, this doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, if Liv doesn't attack Rhea Ripley, then she doesn't get injured, and we, how far back do we want to go?
Well, exactly. Then we're getting into a whole existential conversation about fate.
Well, now
we certainly don't have time for that.
I mean, our next chat is from Winception. We don't want to go too far down any rabbit holes here.
Wong
says Dominik Mysterio playing the two-timing hussy character is gender equality.
That's what I'm saying.
Fanta Consumer has been a member for 5 months in a row. It said, I love the idea of Liv leading Judgment Day, kind of like a gang where she usurps leadership by simply being the top dog, even if they're uncomfortable. Victoria here says, hi drama. Really now, Dan, I'm sorry, but this was a bit too silly for me as a finish, and I'm a fan of Tony Storm shenanigans. I'm glad the WWE Women's Division is at least picking back up again after some wheel-spinning post-Mania. Best wishes to Bex.
I don't know, did I say high drama? It's melodrama, and you can't deny that. I mean, wrestling is melodrama. But I also feel like, again, it's all been part of this pivot that has led to the early stages. The idea Becky was going to take a little break, but then if you need we need a women's champ right now, it's Becky Lynch. Like put it on a kind of thing. I think that's why it has felt wheel spinning, but it's nice that, and again, I like that it's all part of the main story of the show. I
mean, it's interesting. I did notice. I'm going to apologize. I didn't see what the name was, and the idea of it being high drama in this and the other. I did see someone be like, "I can't believe you didn't leave as Becky as your thumbnail. Instead, you went with the salacious thumbnail of two people kissing, because this is salacious for some people that they did a kiss."
Yeah,
in the same way that would be on the front of Take a Break.
If I'm writing a weekly episodic television program, I want you to tune in next week, right? And the fact that it didn't get shown, I made a little joke about like America didn't get it, lol, we do. The fact that it didn't get aired on television, the fact that it's now WWE's Twitter header, the fact that it's all over social media.
You've got to go to YouTube to see it. It's too hot for TV.
Too hot for TV. You've got to tune in next week. Yeah. Of course we're leading with this. This is the thing that's going to drive us forward.
And I'm going to be honest with you guys, like peeling the curtain back somewhat. This is beyond the most searched. Not even just like going to WWE's YouTube channel, which is often a metric that we use. So we have like YouTube tools and stuff that show you like, here are what people are searching for. I looked at what Liv Morgan was, and it is just Liv Morgan kiss, Liv Morgan kisses Dominik, Liv Morgan, Dominik Mysterio kiss. Like it is like, this is something that people are mad into.
Because it's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Mr. Eli Mack here said, hello, I'm fine if I'm the only one, but does anyone else feel like the way Liv is Dom's Dom by allowing him to seem like a top and not a bottom? I'm going to try that one more time.
This is complicated.
Does anyone else feel like the way Liv is Dom's Dom is by allowing him to seem like a top and not a bottom? Right, okay, I'm starting to piece this all together now.
Yeah.
I guess sort of in a way, because Dom's whole thing is, because like Sat was, very adamant when we did the King and Queen. He was like, he knows exactly what he's doing. He is helping Liv, but he's not showing that on TV.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think it's the other way around. I think he is trying to help. Maybe it's some of it is subconscious. If I do this, then maybe I'm doing a bad job of this. Oops, I did that on purpose. But really, I do want to do the right thing by Rhea. I feel like he is loyal to Rhea.
I think this is so funny. I'd love this conversation. I think it's both. I think there is an element of it where he's like, that he's torn between the two, but also he's like been he's had his head turned because he's a Jezebel and he's going after. I just love it. I'm all for it.
The pretty blonde from New Jersey has also shown some interest. Because at the end of the day, men are quite simple. And if a woman shows you a little bit of kindness, you're just like, oh my God, she loves me.
Yikes. What a sorry state of affairs.
Oh, we are dreadful. It's why people pick the bear.
Yeah.
Kuzu here said, the Raw Women's Division is simply going to be a different place without either Rhea or Becky. Hope Liv's second run is better than her first. Have no idea what Becky does, but I wish her the best no matter what she decides. Rhea versus Liv for custody of Dom. Like,
giving them a, like, the thing about WWE is they especially the Paul Levesque era has been finding little threads and referencing them here or there or whatever. You don't have to objectively put, custody of Dom, but if you give Rhea and Liv a ladder match, we are going to have such a nice time with that.
At SummerSlam.
Yeah. Oh, come on!
SummerSlam. 14 years after... 24 years, in fact, after the last time.
Just make it a women's world title ladder match.
14 years.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do a ladder match for the Women's World Championship.
And then Dominik's there.
But, like, Dom is between them. People can make the match grabs. I think it's not even just that Triple H is good at picking up threads. Triple H is good at leaning into memes.
Oh, he fully is. He's a chronic poster.
Oh, for someone who claims that he's never online, bullshit. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing.
I wonder if it's to do with, like, the writers in the room being like, this is something we should do, and him being far more open to... I listened to his, Against My Better Judgment, I listened to his Logan Paul interview, and found it really interesting. Obviously it's a PR exercise in many ways, but
and it's a Triple H interview, so
sure,
there's only so much salt one can go have around them.
But I also like the idea, interested in. I mean, the pivot, the WrestleMania pivot, is a fascinating story that will maybe be told in a documentary at some point in 2035 when Brian can get his story together. But I find the idea that he'd be so receptive to someone pitching. Go this direction. You'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Let's play with that. I think it's a different era.
19 years. I'm bad at maths. Edgar has been a member for 29 months in a row. Said, I 100% agree with Dan about Becky. She deserves to do what she wants. Well earned. That Dom Liv kiss made Reddit. My stomach churned when I saw it. I don't know if I'd go that far that it made my stomach churn, but it made Reddit.
Yeah.
And at some of the end of the day, that's all you can really ask for.
Hey, what dream.
For the success of a wrestling angle.
Sure.
Well, let's get into the rest of this show. Our opening was kind of one of those staging things that I don't like within
the promo train.
WWE. Yeah, the promo train. Because Gunther comes out. He told no lies. He said that the Intercontinental Championship had no prestige until I had it. Correct. He said that the King of the Ring was a joke until I won it. Correct. And the World Heavyweight Championship currently has no prestige because it was won via a cash-in, and soon it will have prestige when I win it. Also correct. And I thought this was good packaging for Gunther here. Our first station for coming out next was Damian Priest, who joined the train. And I thought their back and forth wasn't great because it was just Damian Priest being like, I mean, a lot of people have won this via cashing in, so don't think it's that big of a deal. I can teach them things about this business if you want. And Gunther was like, I don't think you can teach me anything. A lot of people have said they can, but no one really can. And then Drew comes out, and Gunther just leaves.
Yeah.
Gunther was like, that is my segment ended. I am off now. And he came down, and Drew and Priest had a bit of back and forth. I thought Priest was much cooler in this bit than he was in the first bit.
I have so few notes on this segment, and it's not...
And it went long.
It went long. It was 3 heels. Triple H should know better. He sent me 3 emails about it. It's an interesting thing, because you kind of have to do this, right? Because you have... Gunther's just won King of the Ring. He's got to address that some way. He gets a title shot at SummerSlam. He's got to address that some way. But before then, we have the rather depressing matter of Clash at the Castle in like 3 weeks' time. So he's got to be sort of a figure that's present. Damian Priest, as world champion, has to believe that he's going to be world champion at SummerSlam. So he has to acknowledge and address.
Do you not think he's going to be?
No. Because I think Gunther is going to be champion at going into Bash at Berlin, which means I think Punk is going to cost Drew at SummerSlam.
So I've got something similar, but mine is slightly truncated. I've got Punk cost Drew at Clash, so Priest retains. Drew wins Money in the Bank.
Oh, yeah, I always forget Money in the Bank, yeah.
Gunther beats Priest at SummerSlam. Drew immediately cashes in on Gunther and wins the belts.
I think in my head I was getting us ready for a Dragunov Gunther match at Bash at Berlin, but then you've got to build Dragunov to world title picture by Bash at Berlin. I don't know if that is possible even for Ilja Dragunov.
And then you can have Gunther going in as the challenger for Bash at Berlin.
Interesting.
Which is also... The reason why I've gone with that is... It works so much for everyone's points they were making in this promo. Drew, ever since WrestleMania, hates Money in the Bank. I've lost 2 world titles this way. So him winning a world title via Money in the Bank is just more fuel for that hypocritical fire of his. Gunther's whole thing is like, that is not a prestigious world title. It's been cashed in on. And you've only won it via cash-in, which can be lovely fuel for him going to try and win that title at Bash at Berlin. Also, Drew can have the promo of like, I was screwed out of my winning the world championship in my hometown, in my home country, which could be lovely for, admittedly, Austrian Gunther in Germany. Having said that, we did it for Wales, so like, it's what's the difference between Austria and Germany and Wales and Scotland?
And
you know what I mean?
Like, WXW, like exactly it's the whole thing.
In WWE land, it's Europe. Yeah, Europe is one country and a band.
We certainly used to be. Register to vote. June 18th is the deadline. Anyway, I think what's so interesting, being hyperbolic again. What I say interesting, it's just nice that there are several different options.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet this segment was so uninteresting. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I liked... Okay, so here, to be the voice of positivity, finally, on this show, I really like Damian Priest in this part here with Drew. Because Drew is talking about, like... Drew is using the same tactic he used against Seth leading into WrestleMania. You're distracted. You're distracted by The Rock. You're distracted by Cody Rhodes. You're distracted by this. What he was saying to Priest was like, you're distracted by Gunther at SummerSlam. You're distracted by the Judgment Day falling around you because you've got no leader at the moment. And when he did that tactic against Seth, he took advantage of that and was able to beat him at WrestleMania. And that worked for Drew. And Priest just completely flips like, look, I know you're trying to get under my skin. I know you're trying to play the mind games, and I just don't think that's going to work. You think I'm scared of going into as the enemy into Clash of the Castle? Is your wife going to be there, by the way? Sorry, I forgot. What's her name again? And immediately Drew crumbles, goes into Will Smith mode to sort of like try and strike him. And Priest was like, you're trying to play the mind games with me, but I'm the one that's under your skin. And I think that's a really interesting beat for Drew, who's trying to be the manipulator and has been the manipulator, now not being able to have the mind games, they can't use them.
Well, he's the living embodiment of a poster on the internet, isn't he? He's like able to dish it out but can't take it.
That's
it.
And
that's his thing with Punk as well. And the idea that Punk is also fragile ego. Like again, all of this is so interesting. I just didn't care in the moment on the show. Maybe it was because I wasn't settling into my watching of the show.
Look, I completely take your point. Like, I am looking at this from like, I get this is, I like the character beats. I'm not saying it's interesting. Like, I'm not saying this
or the delivery there.
I'm not saying this was captivating television.
Yeah.
I don't think this was a particularly strong start to the episode of Raw. Like, I gave this an episode a 3 out of 5. Like, this was a perfectly fine episode of Monday Night Raw. And this is, I think, is a good case in point of that. This was totally fine. But I think there are some cool little nuggets to pick out from there. And the promo train continued because then Braun Strowman came out and Drew left the ring. And I don't know why we stage things weirdly like this. But Braun was there because he was taking on JD McDonagh. This went way longer than I was expecting.
Yeah, this is what I've always sort of said is that matches don't need to be super long all the time. Sometimes you can just achieve what you want to achieve nice and quickly. Also, whenever they're like, we don't have space we can only give this women's tag division 4 minutes. It's like, no, there's time elsewhere in the show. Because I thought the Rey and Carlito match went long as well.
Particularly because it felt like when Lyra wins and it immediately is cut to the back. Yeah. And like it happened a couple of times in this show where it's like, when quick, she needs cuts in the next segment.
And it went off the air. Yeah. Before the big moment. Like there is always time to be found elsewhere.
Maybe 3 hours isn't long enough. Maybe that's
no, it is.
Maybe that's what Monday Night Raw needs.
It's long enough.
Maybe it needs
Stop that before you carry on with the show before you will this into existence.
Anyway, Braun does his choo-choo train around the thing. Carlito runs down to interfere, but Strowman just hits a very cool tilt-a-whirl power slam onto JD for the win. He then beats up Balor and Carlito because they're chumps. JD tries to hit him with a chair. They all run away, and Braun chases after them. Because he got attacked in the knee, he's limping, and it just looked like he pooed his pants.
It was odd.
Yeah. Liv was interviewed. She was not upset about how she won, but this is where she said that she is going to win tonight and prove that she can beat Becky Lynch. Priest told Balor and Carlito to go find JD and bring him back to the den. We then got a recap of Braun Breaker from last week. Then we got Ricochet getting cleared earlier in the day and Ricochet wanting a match with Braun Breaker, but Adam Pearce said, sorry, you can't. I've suspended Braun Breaker. Ilja Dragunov walks in and it was like, hey, look, I want a match. Why don't we have a match? And Ilja was like, look, I don't fight broken people. I break people. And Rick's like, oh, I'm cleared. And so I was like, yeah, cool, we'll have a match. I thought they had a good match. It was not as good as the time they did it a couple of weeks ago in the King of the Ring. But I thought it was, and perhaps part of that is because I had this sensation in the back. My spidey sense was tingling, it's a three-way feud.
Yeah.
You know how these start, don't you?
Yeah,
DQs.
Yep.
So they were having a good match, but my spidey sense was clearly onto something because Ricochet had the match won when he hit the shooting star press, but Braun Breaker hit the ring and hit the spear, caused a DQ, beat up both men, and Adam Pearce was very upset.
Yeah. I actually thought this match was good as well.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
I liked the Braun Breaker surprise DQ. Like, I obviously know he was never staying at home. I'm still not sold on this Braun Breaker angle. And I tell you the reason. It's a level of inconsistency that also exists later on in the show. It's okay. So there's a bidding war to sign Braun Breaker when he's debuting after the Royal Rumble. They really go back and forth. They really want it. In the end, Nick Aldis signs him to SmackDown. And Adam Pearce is like, oh, damn it. I lost out on Braun Breaker. So then doesn't really get booked on SmackDown. He gets a couple of quick matches on SmackDown, doesn't really get booked. And then the first opportunity, the first draft, gets drafted over to Raw. That means Adam Pearce really wanted Braun Breaker, and Aldis didn't do it quick enough. Okay, fine. So he's going to get drafted to Raw. Then he's not put in the King of the Ring tournament. And it's like, oh yeah, he should maybe be in the King of the Ring tournament. So then Pearce goes, I was going to talk to you about that. Oh, okay, we're going to get something interesting for Braun Breaker. Then we're told, I just don't think you're ready. Hang on. You wanted to sign into an exclusive Raw contract for months. Then you drafted him quite early on in your drafts when he was available. And now you're saying you don't think he's ready. Make it make sense. What is it? So then when we go into the new presentation of it, I like that we're getting some intensity. I like that Braun Breaker's grumpy. I like that I like Braun Breaker. Like, I'm a big fan of seeing him in an angle. I'm certainly a big fan of seeing him in an angle with Ricochet and Ilja Dragunov. I just don't like this lack of consistency that feels stop-start, and Braun Breaker had his main roster debut, what is it, like 5-6 months ago now? It just is so... it's frustrating. That's what I was trying to communicate last week that I couldn't really get across. It's still good that we're going to get here, but make all of this make sense for me.
So I think, and I might be wrong on this one, the first point you were talking about there with sort of the Adam Pearce and the Braun Breaker thing, you're like, make that make sense. I think that's what Braun's frustrations are. Like, in the kayfabe world, that is what Braun feels, which is, you really wanted me on this brand, and then you didn't put me in the King of the Ring tournament, and now you're just giving me squash matches. And in Adam Pearce's mind, he's like, this is my great use of Braun Breaker because I can give him some wins on TV, and then I can eventually, I'll book him into some programs, and I can do this, that, and the other. And Braun's like, well, no, just put me in the main event now. Why am I not in the King of the Ring tournament? Why am I not the IC champion? Just put me in a match with Sami Zayn. And so he's got all these frustrations that he's then taken out. Really, it is a feud between Breaker, Dragunov, and Ricochet, but really, that is more of a backdrop to the feud between Adam Pearce and Braun Breaker. So I kind of dig that.
That's a fair assessment. I just think it makes Adam Pearce look like a really bad administrator. He's very bad at his job.
The last 4 years have shown that with Adam Pearce. Because Kathy tried to interview Adam Pearce while he was shouting at Braun Breaker, but she couldn't really get a word in with him because he then went to go speak to his other son he's had from NXT, Kiana James, who was just really wants to adjudicate something, but he's like, I have got no spots for you on this show.
Look, I find this is my point. I find Kiana James's booking on Raw far more logically consistent than Braun Breaker's over the past few months. Because at the very least,
works for me.
Well, there you go. Again, it's not about Braun Breaker not working for me. It's not about... I mean, your argument is good. I get the point. I hear all of it. It is just... It's been stop-start and weird and inconsistent to the point where I feel like momentum has sort of disappeared. You can always bring momentum back. And hopefully, we'll let it play out. But Kiana James has been more narratively consistent for me.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, she's more narratively consistent than Dijak has been.
Sure.
We had some comedy earlier in the day with Miz and R-Truth about some ice cream and Memorial Day weekend white suits. I didn't realize this actually until someone pointed out in the comments on today's news that it's Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, that's yeah.
It's not a day then, is it?
Well, it's the weekend around them. Like, it's the bank holiday Monday, so it's the bank holiday weekend. Because we do that too.
Well, yeah, but we don't call it a day. We don't say it's like.
It's bank holiday Monday, but we have the bank holiday weekend, which is based around. No, I'm not. Hey, look, I'm the first person to point out when America calls things weird. I get a lot of hate for it. On this occasion, I stand with America.
All right, Jim Duggan, like it's.
Oh.
Anyway, they did some comedy. New Day walked up.
It was quite funny comedy.
It was all right. They were talking about a raffle for a tag title shot, but Miz and R-Truth pretended they didn't really know what it was. And then Karrion Kross walked up. And Karrion Kross is there being like, you know, Xavier Woods, I'm actually not interested in Kofi Kingston, despite my conversation I had with him 2 weeks ago. It's you that I'm interested in. Because what have you done? You know, Kofi's won the WWE Championship. Big E's, hell, I even won the NXT Championship. What have you accomplished as a singles guy? But if you come over my way, we can do this. And then was like, I'm not going to break up a 10-year friendship just for you and your mustache. So why don't you book us into a tag match next week with Tucker and Razor, and we'll have a match. So that is a reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secrets of the Ooze.
And that, it's just if they're so niche.
Well, no, so what happened was they wanted to put Bebop and Rocksteady in the movie, but Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who are the creators of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, signed such a good licensing deal that they got creative control over all like things that are based around TMNT, and that meant that they couldn't, if they used their characters, they would have to approve them. So if they tried to put Bebop and Rocksteady into a movie, Eastman and Laird would be like, well, no, we own those characters, so we get signed off and we get to say what it is that they do within this movie. So they were like, well, we can't really put Bebop and Rocksteady in. We'll just create our own characters. What's Jim Henson Company got just around in the cupboard? These two outfits here. They're called Tucker and Razor. They're basically Bebop and Rocksteady, but we've given them different names. Now we can do whatever the hell we want. And then you forward that to 30-odd years later, and Xavier Woods made a reference to them on an episode of Monday Night Raw.
Right, okay, fine.
It's just a little fun fact for you there.
Yeah, look, I mean, I love you being passionate about the things you're passionate about.
I tell this story a lot, only because I feel like this is one of those stories that just sums me up quite a bit. I woke up one morning, and I thought to myself, isn't it weird that they never had Krang in one of the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies? Isn't it weird that they never had Bebop and Rocksteady?
You know, some days it's all I can think about.
I wonder why that is. So I then spent a few hours getting in touch with the producer of the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, and then had a Skype conversation with him for about 2.5 hours, where we just talked about him making those movies, and I learned a lot.
If there's one thing I know about you, it's that you will never leave a rabbit hole unexcavated. And I respect it.
Anyway, we then had Tucker and Razor taking on...
Sorry, did you see what was behind? Again, things in the background. You've got to always be paying attention, always be looking. Sonya Deville was having a little chat with Natalya.
Was she now?
She was indeed.
I was trying to work out who it was.
It was Sonya Deville.
I thought it was Raquel Rodriguez.
Look, trust me.
I'm not saying... I do.
When it comes to the B players in the women's division, I know who it's going to be.
Well, I think that's interesting because I think that will play into the promo we have later on. Okay. Again, there's that word interesting. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Tucker and Razor took on the Creeds. They won very, very quickly with some Scarlet distraction. They have their new finish is now called What a Rush, which is a nice little reference to Paul Ellering's time with the Legion of Doom. And yeah, I've seen some people be upset that the Creeds lost in 3 minutes. I think this is all just for them to go with Team Gable.
Yeah, probably. I do think Julius lifting one of them on his shoulders should be far more... It should have got bigger reaction than it did. They no-sold it, the audience.
It's not a great crowd. That's kind of what I was talking about in the main event, where they were not into that main event. I thought they'd be more into it than they were, but they went into a lot of things on this show.
Yeah, this was fine. I just still find it hard. It's this weird thing of liking AOP, but not really understanding their motivation. I still don't really understand Karrion Kross's motivation. I know what he does every week on television. I just don't know why he's doing it. Mm-hmm. You know? That's my frustration here with the Final Testament.
Yeah. Someone's pointed out that Sheamus actually played Bebop in the Out the Shadows.
Well, it all comes together, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I wonder if they're asking now, it's like, well, why was he allowed to do it? Well, it's a very different time. Peter Laird had gone. Peter Laird was really.
Speaking of Sheamus,
Peter Laird was.
Speaking of Sheamus, he was next.
Peter Laird was the problem. Kevin Eastman was quite happy to do a lot of things with Peter Laird. Anyway, Ray cut a promo on Carlito. And then we had Braun chasing after JD while he was chatting with Liv. Still looked like he pooped his pants. Then Sheamus came out for a promo where he was talking about banger after banger after banger. He basically was like, I'm actually just blown up with walking out to this ring. He got a promo on Ludwig Kaiser. Ludwig Kaiser appeared on the screen. Sheamus went out to find him. They did the big tracking shot for it. And they had a little brawl. And the refs broke it up. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to their match next week.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah,
massively. So this was all perfectly fine call-out promo business.
Yeah. Becky,
except Sheamus was dressed, and this is full credit to Alex, Queen of the Ring, dressed like someone going to the People's Choice Awards in 2008. It was a really weird outfit.
Well, I mean, we're going to get Rey versus Carlito soon, so that does also feel like it's straight from SmackDown to.
We'll get there.
Becky had a little chat with Lyra.
That's where she said, "Until it's you win or you learn until you realize it's time to walk away." And I that was my first moment where I was like, "Oh," and I kind of had a feeling. I felt something for the first time in the day. Kairi
Sane took on Lyra Valkyria. Not a lot of time given to this, unfortunately. Lyra countered the insane elbow for the win. It wasn't much of a match.
No,
just to give her a win on TV after her loss at Queen of the Ring, which I think is actually a good use of TV time.
It is a good use of TV time. It is actually, this is exactly the length things should be sometimes just to get the point across. I have said for the past few weeks, just get there. Mm-hmm. This was an example of them getting there. I liked that Lyra was selling the ribs. It looked like Nia Jax absolutely destroyed her.
It's my
Annihilator,
my wrestling spot of the year.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think anything is going to top that.
Unreal. And you saw Corey Graves in the background just jump to his feet because it was so impressive. I thought I enjoyed King and Queen. I thought it was impressive that in a match between a Marmite wrestler like Nia Jax and a relative newbie like Lyra Valkyria, they were able to do enough to sort of get you invested and get the crowd get over. So good for Lyra Valkyria that they're continuing. It wasn't just a brief push. They're continuing it. I liked it.
Yeah. Balor and Carlito couldn't find JD McDonagh, and then JD McDonagh walked in, and he said, "Look, I was just saying, I just wanted to let Liv Morgan know that her title reign is not going to last very long. That's all I was saying, boss. Like nothing more untoward than that." And then Dom walked in. This is where he said, "Look, I spoke with Rhea, and I'm going to make things right tonight." Spoilers: he did not.
It's just so camp to me that they go arena to arena across the North American states and countries decorating. Oh, yeah. Like everywhere they go, they either hire someone to do it for them or they courier their various decorations, and they spend a little bit, they get to the arena early so that they can put up their little bits and bobs. I just find that, like, even I wouldn't do that.
It's their little judgment.
Good for them.
Yeah. Io Sky was watching, speaking of like backdrops and stuff, this, wherever they were, is everywhere that the McMahon-Helmsley era always had their backstage segments.
Yes, because I feel so. This is kind of what I was saying in the Judgment Day Clubhouse thing. I'd much rather they all existed because that for me makes more sense.
Yeah,
like I don't want to think like, why is that? You've had this banner made? Where did you find these? And were you in like Home Sense buying these antique scales? What are they? Did this all fit in the back of your rental? Do you have to rent a bigger car? I think about rentals a lot because I've been watching Johnny Gargano's YouTube channel, and basically every single one of his vlogs starts with them trying to rent the same yellow Jeep. Whereas like Io Sky's just chilling out in a little room that they've been assigned. Do that. It was the same thing with when they're standing in front of the giant Raw logo. Like Adam Pearce's office, it just happens to be whatever the poster is this week in a backdrop. I love it.
I loved that this just looked like the McMahon-Helmsley regime. I was expecting if the camera just turned around, at the Attitude Era podcast would often say there was a big pot of hummus.
Big pot of hummus.
Because that is the archetype of that locker room.
Big pot of hummus, a salad, and a pot plant.
Oh,
that they could throw.
Yeah, a lovely salad spread. Yeah. Lots of crudité for all their hummus.
I think we need a return to this kind of establishment, personally.
Well, I mean, Io Sky, like, you know, it's just one of those days.
Yeah, she was not having a good time.
She didn't want to wake up.
Yeah.
Everything was effed and everybody sucks.
Yeah.
She didn't really know why, but she wanted to justify ripping
She lost last week, and now Kairi's lost this week, and it's infuriating. She lost her title.
Yeah.
Infuriating. She's back at the pecking order.
She has some human contact. She didn't want to interact. I was on contract. Like, their best bet was to stay away.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those days.
What are you doing?
It's Limp Bizkit.
Okay.
It's the song Break Stuff.
I should have known.
Because she freaked out. It's actually from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, God!
It's not. That was Vanilla Ice. He did a song. My next note I've written here is, the Savannah Bananas look insufferable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just remind me of sports clubs when I was at university, and
on their socials.
Yeah, so seeing them at the socials being like, you just look like the biggest bunch of pricks.
Yeah,
just trying to shove things up your asses because that's your initiation for, because you need to play touch football or whatever it is.
Everyone's a little bit gay.
Rey Mysterio took on Carlito like it was 2006, only this time Rey won.
Did you hear Pat McAfee's line? They were talking about how, like, literally, I think the last time they had a match together was 2004.
Yeah, they said it's been 20 years.
Pat McAfee said, like, I was in, like, middle school or something. And Michael Cole went, I called that match.
That can't be true.
No,
I mean the Pat McAfee thing.
I'll find out. I've got my laptop.
He's in his 40s, surely.
Maybe he didn't say middle school. Pat McAfee. He was born in. Oh my God, Pat McAfee is 3 years older than I am.
Yeah, that sounds more about right.
So in 2004, he was in sixth form, so not middle school, high school.
Yeah. There you go. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I thought he'd be around. Yeah, actually, I would have thought he was in his 40s, but there you go.
He's 37. That's depressed me. I thought there was also a video going around. This podcast has gone off the rails. But there's a meme going around on Twitter at the moment of it's a TikTok that this like recruitment company has made. We're recruiters. Of course, we have a beer tap in our office. We're recruiters. Of course, we've got a beauty station in our office, and there are all these like kids, right? And I'm like, you look like you're wearing your dad's suit. You look like you're doing a like year 10 project.
Yeah.
Make
a TV advert.
I have no concept of age at this point. Like, utter nonsense. They look like young apprentice candidates.
Yeah. Anywho, Rey won. This match got a lot of time when you think about it.
Wild because it was bollocks.
I don't think it was bollocks.
No, it was
like,
fine.
It was every match from 2006 that I ever saw. Only it was about sort of 8 minutes longer than that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Priest came out and he beat everyone up after the match. They're Priest and Rey next week.
I wrote down Priest as world champ has far more important things to worry about than this, and then I added an addendum to it that says, I suppose that's the point. He's almost like Kross at all of this. He doesn't want to. Why am I involved in this bollocks? You should be taking care of it yourself.
Because he looks at ringside while Priest and Balor and Carlito are about to fist bump each other, and Priest gives them a look of like, why are we wasting our time with him? And Balor was like, nope, I wasn't going to fist bump him at all.
On reflection, that's good. That makes sense.
We had Bronson Reed taking on Otis. Chad Gable had set this match up because he berated Cesaro for not being in Saudi Arabia and called Maxine Goldilocks and her 3 brain cells, which I thought was a good line. So Bronson Reed was set up to be beaten by Otis. Otis was going to do the worm, but Master Gable told him not to do it. Distraction long enough. Bronson Reed hit the tsunami. I thought they set this up very cleverly, and Pat McAfee was very good at calling this on commentary. It was like, Gable could have stopped him.
Not only could Gable have stopped him, Gable's the reason Otis didn't get the win.
Yeah, it's the Don Callis thing. Yeah. So on Double or Nothing, Callis...
Omega did the caterpillar a lot.
the story was that Takeshi didn't listens to Don Callis' advice, and that's what led him to the thing. They've been doing this for a few weeks now with Gable and Otis.
Has he explicitly said why he doesn't want Otis to do the caterpillar?
Because it's goofy nonsense.
Has he said those words? Well, that's what we've inferred.
Yeah, they must have done.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, do the segment.
Okay, so Reed wins, and as I said, like Gable basically just watched Reed hit the tsunami. Like, another heel manager would have tried to stop him so that their guy could win, but he was almost doing it to punish Otis and make a point. And he calls out the rest of Alpha Academy. So Maxine and Tozawa come out as we go into they go to an ad break, they come back. And he said, look, the reason why Otis keeps failing is because of a lack of discipline. So I need to discipline him. And he takes off his belt and he's going to force Maxine and Tozawa to watch. And he goes to whip, and Maxine grabs him by the arm and stops him from doing it.
Then he goes to name.
Well, listen, I said in my edited review, I was like, look, there is a man in a suit who is about to whip another man with a belt while two other people are forced to watch. Somewhere, somehow, someone is masturbating to this video. And then, unfortunately, Sami Zayn killed their mood because he came out for the save. But yeah, he sent Maxine away after she stopped him from doing the whip. And Sami, such a good guy, as he was walking, he was like,
checked on her.
You all right, babe?
You all right, babe?
You all right, babe?
You all right, babes?
You all right, babes? And he walks down, and he kind of did the same promo he did with Otis, but I love that they did this in front of the crowd this time, which is, you have got to stop listening to him and listening to these people. This crowd, who were not into a lot of things on this show, they went Savannah Bananas for Mr. Otis here. They were so into this segment, and they were so into this story. And that's awesome. Like, I've said my piece about this Chad Gable heel turn, whether it was the right time, whether it was the wrong time, diddly-dee. The best thing that's come out of this now is the rise of Otis. Like, I think this is the net positive of this Gable heel turn is this rise of Otis. And I'm loving that.
So in that spirit, I kind of want to pepper everything I'm about to say with, it's working, so carry on. I find there's an inconsistency in Chad Gable's motivation for me. The belt thing kind of came out of nowhere.
That massively so.
And a more appropriate...
It felt like it was a cheap heat thing.
Yes. And it's like, he starts undoing his belt, and I'm like, what? And then I'm going to whip you and make these two... What? Like, Chad Gable is a coach. If you want to show him mentally and physically abusing Otis, have him make him do laps. Have him do so much workout that he ends up throwing up, and he's like, it's bad for him.
Louis through his weird weekend.
Right. Is that a thing?
Yeah, you see the Louis through episode.
I didn't watch Louis through.
Oh, watch the wrestling one.
Okay.
He goes to the WCW power plants.
Right.
And that's what they do to him because as a punishment, because he asked someone if wrestling was fake.
Yeah, not to get too close to the wire here, because you could, and it's inappropriate too, but you could go a bit Bill DeMott with it. Like, there's a level of... There's an established trope of villainous coach. And within that trope is not, I'm going to take my belt off and whip you. The only thing I can point to is Chad's a dad. And maybe they're making some statement about dads. It's very weird.
Well, I'm one of them. And
but the whole thing about, like, my dad used to hit... Michael Jackson was talked about. My dad used to hit me with his belt kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's 2024. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
That was a trope of the 1980s.
This is
the 1950s, maybe.
So I find it all just felt weird and out of left field. I don't love the... It's the reason I brought up the Caterpillar thing was... Chad Gable used to encourage Otis to win, right? And now here is Otis with the momentum, using the Caterpillar. He's about to win, and Chad Gable is telling him to stop doing that, directly interfering, directly stopping, during the match, Otis from winning. This happens a lot. This happens regularly now. There's no development in that story, and the motivation feels off to me. I care far more about motivation than I do everything else when it comes to character and narrative.
That's fair.
However... all of that said, as you pointed out, it's over.
It's over.
If it's over, I guess carry on, because it's working.
And this crowd desperately wanted to see Otis turn on Chad and walk away with Sami Zayn. And so they were mightily upset when he once again left with Chad.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Like, it's good. Delay that.
That's
delay.
That's and it's making me dislike Chad Gable, not as a wrestler, not as a person, but a character. I've got heat with Chad Gable. I still want to see what he's doing every week. Thus, it is working. Even if I think, again, that was another point I was trying to make last week. Even if I don't get on with it, even if it's not what I would do with a story, I can still feel it working on me. So, do your worst, I suppose.
And then the last thing for us to talk about is Kathy interviewing Baszler and Stark, who invite Belair and Cargill to Monday Night Raw for their tag team match. And then Sonya Deville walked up to say, look, I hope you know that the locker room doesn't respect you, which is, ties into the entirely conversation we have. Basically just going around canvassing everyone to be like, do you like them? And they're like, no, not really. No one actually respects you. No one thinks you're as badass as you claim that you are. And to prove that point, the witches walked up and said, like, hey, you've never beaten us. We should have a match. and they walked away. And Sonya's like, there you go. No one respects you.
Yeah. I liked the segment. I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Not least, I just like seeing Sonya Deville back. I popped when I saw the witches show up on TV because I was like, oh, there they are. I've been waiting for you for a little while. I like the reminder that Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark are quite cool and badassy. I thought this was an effective little segment. I also like, while this is ostensibly about the tag team titles, it's nice to have storyline angles that aren't based around championships. Now, if this ultimately leads to the introduction of a Women's Intercontinental Championship, then I'll retract that statement. But there's something going on with specifically Shayna and Sonya, and I like that.
Yeah,
I like that there is time on this 3-hour broadcast for women's storylines that aren't based around titles. That was cool. I like it. I'm into it. Let's see where it goes.
Well, that's the end of the show. A bit of sad news, actually, because moderator just points out Adam Copeland's announced that he has fractured his tibia and is going to require surgery.
Yuck. That's painful.
That sucks.
Bless him.
Yeah, that absolutely sucks.
Where's the tibia?
Yeah, I think it's in your foot.
Yeah.
Unpleasant. It was a bad landing.
Was it?
Well, yeah, he jumped.
I haven't actually had a chance to see Double or Nothing yet.
Yeah, he did an elbow drop off the top of the cage, but just went feet first. So it was like, and I actually said on the podcast review yesterday, it reminded me a lot of when Randy Savage leaped off the top of the cage at Halloween Havoc 97, and I think shattered his foot because it's a long way down for a heavier person to go. But I gave the episode overall 3 out of 5. I thought it was a fine episode of the show.
I agree. I think overall it did the things it needed to do. The bits that I enjoyed very much, and the bits that I didn't enjoy, I just was like, yeah, next segment now. So.
Well, let's say a special thank you to our wonderful Pledgehammers over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. Head on over there for lots of exclusive content this coming Wednesday. In fact, tomorrow, I shouldn't say this coming Wednesday, tomorrow is mine and Ollie's review of Money in the Bank 2014, which was so much fun to do. It's a hell of a pay-per-view to look back on, a very interesting time to look back on. So that is part 5 of our breakup of the Shield. We've got 2 more episodes left in that series, so you can go listen to episode 5 and the other 4 episodes we've done as well. So head on to patreon.com/WrestleTalk to get hold of that. If you're one of our $25 and above Patreon Pledgehammers, you get your name read out on the show like these fine folk. The Incredible Tarzo.
Keep rolling, the Rick Pesh.
Didn't get any Limp Bizkits. Didn't get a Fred Durst style.
Keep rolling.
Okay. Tony Jabroni.
Commentator of the Century, Vince Phillips.
Will Big E Singleton.
The Lumberjack, XX Logzaclux.
Par for the Cause, Zarjeth.
Nathan, the Street Racing Prophet Ford.
Rue of the Day, Ruari O'Brien Kelly.
The Saint, Joshua Peters.
Ask Him, Deontay Sharon.
And the Vindicator, Finn Brennan.
That is your Hall of Fame class for 28th of May, 2024. Right, let's get into the rest of your Ultra Chats. Please do vote in the poll. My laptop has run out of battery, so I'm going to need to
fine.
over to end that.
You.
So I'll need you to do a little bit of filling for me, said the actress to the bishop. Known Ultra Chatter here said, hi lads, I'm not sure about you, but I'm completely on board with this Alpha Academy storyline. I love the idea of Otis going over Gable on a big stage, maybe for the IC title. Who knows? I think you said last week. Was it you that said last week? You're not sure if you could see this as an IC title.
Yeah, I said we were talking about where's the ceiling for Otis, and I was like, you could make a case for the IC title. Personally, I don't know, but you certainly could. You know, again, it takes us a while to get there, I think, but I certainly like the idea of it.
Aiden said, hi guys, won't lie, I'm really bummed out over Becky leaving. I know it's not forever, but I'm really going to miss her. To put it in perspective, Becky is to me what Ollie is to Punk. Oh, Punk is to Ollie.
Unless Punk maybe loves Ollie Davis.
I really do. I don't think it was a Freudian slip. That being said, she's more than earned this break and that big money contract. She certainly has. Jabroni here says, pitch for after King of the Ring, have Aldis speak with Randy and tell him he can't undo the ref decision, but he can give him Cody at SummerSlam. AJ finds out about this, confronts Aldis, asking why Randy's getting the match after losing, and he doesn't. They feud until Clash.
Yeah, so my sort of like post-Clash thought, post King of the Ring thought was I liked what they were selling in terms of Randy Orton's close to tying the record with Cena and Flair. but his body's giving out on him, and he's old now.
Love that match.
And I liked the idea of him getting increasingly desperate, and then feuding with Cody into SummerSlam. That's what I do. Then I realized they're also kind of a little bit doing that with AJ. I thought that was one of the rare moments of sort of pathos, actually, in WWE wrestling specifically, where he's like, I ain't got long left, kind of thing. So yeah, I think there's a lot to play with.
Me too. I mean, I have seen some people be like, "Oh, Gunther should be facing Cody at SummerSlam." I'm like, "What? Yeah. No, let's do this brand split properly."
Yeah.
But also, B, I think Cody Randy is a much more compelling.
On the brand split, they invited Jade and Bianca to Raw rather than saying we might show up on SmackDown. I kind of appreciate that in a tiny little way.
Yeah, I mean, they don't need to invite them. They're allowed to be on the show.
They literally are, yeah.
Because they're the tag champs. Yeah, I think they forget that sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
Not they're the tag champs, they're the ruling of it. Charlie the Brain here said, "Hey guys, I've been wondering recently about the current absentees. Who do you think is being missed the most based on the current state of the roster? We're missing people like Flair, Rollins, Punk, Rhea, Lynch, probably, Asuka, Dom, Bliss, and Jimmy."
Of that list, the interesting thing is so many of them don't feel like they're missing, right? Obviously Becky's just left, but
Punk's referenced on the show a lot.
Rhea is the central figure of this storyline.
Dom's on TV every week.
Asuka has been a sort of team player rather than a person in her own right.
Agreed.
Of your list, it's probably Charlotte, but I don't think the division is missing her necessarily. She'll be a welcome return when she's ready, but
for me, it's Punk. And that's because I think Raw doesn't feel like it has a top star at the moment.
That's a fair assessment. That's a fair assessment.
And I think that it needs someone who feels like a tippity top star.
Yeah. Look, he's probably nearly ready to go by now.
Yeah, it's probably not far. I don't know, though. Brett J. Rasmussen here said, "I'm excited to see what Becky will do next. Gable is such a bastard heel. I thought when Maxine stopped him. I hope that you're feeling better this week, Dan. And I know that you are the best, and we love you. And Luke, too. Keep being awesome. Love you, guys."
Thanks, Brett.
Aiden here said, "Hi, guys. Won't lie, I'm really bummed out over Becky leaving." Oh, we just had that one. Some guy said, "Gunther winning King of the Ring and eventually winning the world title makes sense. But do you think that between Priest, Drew, Gunther, and the eventual return of Punk and Rollins, the world title picture is too congested?"
I definitely had that thought, because I did the same thing, and I'm like, well, how do you get to Mania, and who's going where, and what's doing what, and Punk and Drew, and blah, blah, blah. There's an argument to be made that Punk and Drew doesn't need a world title on it. It's just an entertaining feud anyway, but the world title would be a welcome addition to that, and really, ultimately, your world title should be on your top stars. Mm-hmm. It is a very congested picture. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm intrigued.
Because there seem to be slotting Braun into that slot as well. Like, I can see them doing Priest and Braun. Maybe that's your Money in the Bank match.
Yeah, maybe.
Badger Sprite here said, "My favourite moment of Raw is when Priest said to JD McDonagh, 'I saw you talking with Liv,' and Finn looked at him like, 'Huh?' pretending to be shocked, as if he and Liv weren't in the same car last week. Great camp. Priest looked at Finn knowingly too."
Yeah.
Fanta Consumer said, "I genuinely thought this was a great show. My favourite since before the draft. I respect your opinion, Luke." Anyways, it's all about the he said, she said. Bull. That's also from Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit.
Right.
Just listen to Significant Other. Just have it on the background.
Okay.
You might like it.
No, I might.
Rearranged is an absolutely banging tune.
I might. You have to listen to Jenny from the Block.
I will do. I think I probably have. I've heard that song. I used to listen to Radio 1.
The full album, though. It's a very good album. It's one of the best ever made.
X-Hero99 said, "Here's my prediction going forward. Priest wins at Clash in the Castle via Punk. Drew wins Money in the Bank. Walter wins the World Championship at SummerSlam. Drew tries to cash in the belt, but Punk ruins it, which makes Drew hate Punk even more." It's also a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is it. Like, it's nice that there's all these options.
Mr. Eli Mack here said, "I'm curious about this Chad Otis Sammy story. Will this feud truly blow off at SummerSlam with Otis finally turning on Chad, but the Creed brothers helping Chad win the belt? It makes me sort of wish that Sammy would have had another feud for the title run."
Well, the feud is always about what you do next with the title, right? After Gunther, what happens with the next winner? And the fact that the championship means so much that it's made Chad Gable go against everything he stands for in many different ways is, I think, quite a compelling story. SummerSlam is quite far away. I think we are thinking already about August the 5th when we have, I forgot Money in the Bank existed. We have Clash on the 15th and we have Money in the Bank on the 6th of July, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 whole pay-per-views before we even get there. Let's see where we're going.
Mayor Bainesville Dan said, "Hello, Luke. Hello, other Dan. Hope you're doing well. And if not, just know that I believe in you.
Dan?
Every day now I have to mention it. Today marks a full calendar year of Dexter Lumis not having a match. When is the Wyatt 6 coming?"
17th of June.
That is the reported date is 17th of June. I don't think that's a reported date. I think that's more like in one of those QR code things. Sen Rosa here said, lads, been a while and I'm going to All In from Melbourne. Whoa. Hope to meet you guys. Rebecca Quinn would be fun alongside Mercedes Britt, Thunder Rosa, etc. Also, Wembley is my happy place, Dan. Come on, Man United and Ten Hag in. Thoughts?
It was a very, very special day on Saturday. I had a wonderful time listening to the football while also doing MCM related.
I was going to say, weren't you working?
Yes, I was working MCM, but I had a little AirPod in listening to the match, and actually weirdly made me focus even more. Yeah, look, I'm Ten Hag in at the minute. Like, I don't know. There's the only person who I would consider outside of Ten Hag is Thomas Frank, because I need a level of logic. All of the managers they're looking at bring something different to the table, and that doesn't speak to the club being run very well. So I'm all about consistency, keep the project going. It's been a dreadful season, but God, that felt good on Saturday. Those are my thoughts.
Do you want to hear about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3? No. Wasn't here yesterday. But I agree with you, Luke. There is a happy middle ground between WWE's 5-match card and AEW's 12-match card. You know what that middle ground is called? It's TNA. Anyways, good Raw, and I really enjoyed the opening. It felt big time. Big time!
I feel like it's if they're going monthly, they need to slim those cards right down.
That's exactly what I said.
However, I actually come around to the 5-match card. I don't know. King and Queen just zipped by for me.
It does zip by. I just think, I think 7-8 matches.
7's probably perfect.
I think 7 is probably perfect. Granted, you can't really do that on WWE shows at the moment because there's so much ad break. Yeah, there's so much admin and nonsense you have to do around the matches that would just extend out the show because you want to
do shorter matches.
But you want to have the right length of match, because one of the benefits of doing these 5-match cards is you can have 20-minute matches, and that makes the pay-per-views feel special.
Yeah.
Benny Boy here said, just logged into WWE 2K24 and there's a QR code that leads to another creepy video, and you get a code to unlock a bird logo manager card for my faction. Pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
It's a cool idea.
That is. It's creative. I like it.
Do you know what I found out today via a comment left on Patreon? You can release more than one person a week in my GM mode.
Scandal. You never used to be able to.
No.
They've changed that.
It's a new feature. I don't know if that's new in the update or if that's just been the case this entire time.
I don't know if I would advise you to do that in my GM. But
No spoilers. Remember, we're much further ahead than the broadcast days.
It stands for week 12.
I don't think it does stand. And Jambid here talks about the unfortunate Adam Copeland injury that we mentioned earlier, which absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
Right, let me just go and end this poll. Fill for time, Dan.
I will. Wow. I mean, what a show. We've talked about everything. We've talked about Raw. We've talked about the people involved in the show. We've talked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And now we are just seconds away from finding out what you, the WrestleTalk audience, thought of this show via the poll that we are always doing on time every single week. We never accidentally shut the stream. For God's sake, Luke. Luke's just closed the poll rather than ending it.
I've done it through OBS before.
Ralph Marion's is a brand new member, and so is Jay Osler. Thank you guys so much for that purpose. At least you've not taken us offline. No. But look, I'm gonna guess I'm gonna guess it was about 70%.
Yeah, you reckon?
Yeah, I feel like people probably thought it was 70%. Anyone in the old mod chat saying anything? I shall go down and check.
I can end it here. Oh, it's actually less than that. 66%
are thumbs up on this particular episode of Raw. That's lower than I'd give it.
Yeah, that is actually much lower than I thought. 66% thumbs up, mid 30%.
There you go. Yeah. What a twist.
That is much lower than I was expecting. But anyway, you're all wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us today here on the podcast. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Press the thumbs up button. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on this episode of Raw. And what's your favorite part of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trilogy? It's a fascinating little period of our cinema history. Cinema's never really gotten better since then, to be honest. And thank you all so much to our live audience. Thank you so much to our wonderful moderating team as well. We're back on Thursday with a review of AEW Dynamite, where I imagine we'll have an update on the TNT Championship, which presumably will now be vacated. Unless, of course, interim champions. Let's bring that back. It's been a while since we've had some interim champion nonsense. So maybe it's time. So join us there.
I mean, that's
Thursday.
Bringing the feeling back. Let AW be AW.
And then on Friday, it is our epic 10-hour stream here on the WrestleTalk podcast, where we're going to be doing a marathon of Money in the Bank matches with a Money in the Bank randomizer. Let me just quickly double check. Hold on.
Okay, fine, absolutely. Go ahead.
I think if I press this... Did it work? Yes, look, there it is. There's the wheel.
That is far too
We're
big.
going to be spinning this wheel, and it's going to pick Money in the Bank ladder matches for us. I can't show it now because my laptop's dead, but I'll take it off screen. So we're going to be spinning that wheel, and that is going to pick out a Money in the Bank ladder match for us to watch, and we're going to watch it together, and you can join us at home. It's going to be a wonderful time. We're doing that for 10 whole hours. So if you thought that little 30-second snippet was a good time, imagine that, but for 10 hours.
I'm supposed to be selling it.
We'll see you then. I've been going DAD. That has been the Professor, the Truth, the beautiful Dan Layton. Jam that jam.